What's up, everybody? Happy Wednesday to you. My name is Jon, the host of Lombardi Time Brews, and this is Partner in Pod, Partner in Life, Claudia. So today we are hanging out to answer, say hi, talk about anything Green Bay Packers. The first thing I'm going to do for you is actually give you a little cap update because as of now, we are in the month of June. Devondre Campbell's opening, let's say, is now off the cap. So we now have a new Packers cap to deal with. So I'm going to run you through that and then some interesting tidbits, allow people just a couple minutes to get on in here. People like Captain Cabalcello, my friend, how you doing today? So, just a couple little tidbits of news for you. One, former Packers center Corey Lindsley has officially been released by the Los Angeles Chargers, but that is because he is retiring. If you recall, earlier in the season, I think it was about like week 2, week 3, they discovered he actually had a heart condition, shut down for the rest of the year, and it looks as though his career is indeed coming to an end. But Lindsley, for the Packers' purposes, spent 7 years being the Packers center, playing over 9,000 snaps in his career. Really didn't miss many games when he was at the Packers. Even was an All-Pro in 2020. Now, I have never met Lindsley, but I have heard from lots of others that he is an incredibly stand-up human being, and whichever team, the NFL, everyone, is going to miss his presence. Also, just something I wanted to clarify, the Packers did announce that Monday, July 22nd is going to be the official kickoff of 2024 training camp, and they're actually going to be doing the first training camp practice and the shareholder meeting on that day. That's going to be a busy day. I will be there for all of it. In fact, I think on that day, I might go live twice. Once to talk about the practice and then the other to talk about the shareholder meeting. So very, very busy day on Monday, July 22nd. And then it is my anticipation, just like last year, if you were around the channel at that time, I went to, I think all but 2 of the training camp practices and then did a video report after. This year, I am anticipating getting to every open training camp practice and then probably being live right after to answer your questions and give a report as to what was going on, except for one day I'm going to reserve just to take my son and not worry about the channel and just enjoy the Packers as a family. Okay, Cubbles, what you saying now?
So when players retire with a team, do they get some sort of special contract that is kind of glossed over cap-wise?
Well, I mean, there are one-day contracts that generally don't have any type of compensation tied to them. You see that a lot with the Packers. They really love doing ceremonial one-day contracts so a guy can retire as a member of the team. Beyond that, though, not really. And those are just predominantly ceremonial. With what you're talking about, I don't know if you're getting to some kind of a retirement contract for Lindsley because there was a medical situation there. No, not really. It wouldn't be under contract, but some contracts do have long-term disability built into them that may get honored in different ways. It's really team dependent and a lot of technicalities to it. But I think what you're referencing is one-day ceremonial contracts, and that's about it. Gypsy Mike, what's up?
Saying good afternoon. Hope you two kids are doing good today.
Oh, we are doing fantastic. Hope you are too, Gypsy Mike. So that cap rundown that I mentioned, here it is for you. As of right now, with Devondre Campbell's money now being freed up, the Green Bay Packers have about, with some rounding, $30 million in available cap space. There's going to be some of that taken up by Jordan Love once his extension gets done. And if you didn't see the post, keep in mind that Brian Gutekunst has said that both parties, both Jordan and the Packers, want to have that contract done before training camp. Talks are ongoing, so it should be any time now, really. And so that's estimated to add on about 10, or if they front-loaded a little, maybe about 15 million of the available 30, thus taking Jordan Love's cap number right now being 12 and pushing it up to something like 22, if they front-loaded a little, 27-ish. So we'll find out the exact details on that when it happens, but there goes a third to half of the available cap space. Then you've also got the Jordan Morgan contract. He's the only rookie that hasn't yet signed his deal. Plus, of course, they need a few $1 million to actually operate in season. So that's going to take about $10 million ish, maybe 8, kind of depends on some factors there of their cap space as well. As for Kenny Clark extension, because that's talked about a bunch, if they ink him to an extension, since he's got the highest cap number on the team at 27, it may actually open up some cap money. In case you're wondering about dead money, the Packers have about $50 million in dead money that they're still carrying. Remember, it was such a huge narrative last year with like the Rodgers deal and everything. Oh, they're carrying all this dead cap. They still are about $50 million worth this year. That's coming from predominantly David Bakhtiari being 18 of it. Aaron Jones, 12 million in dead cap. And then you've got Savage, Razul, Campbell combining for about 13. And then Yash is 2.5. Nixon still counts for 1.4 million in dead cap in spite of him being under contract because they did the new contract after his void expired, if you remember me talking about that at the time. So about 50 million in cap space there occupied. Dead style. But as for the good news, there is some really interesting cap nuggets that are good. If you take all of the receivers on the team, even the dudes who are not going to make the team, the guys projected for the practice squad, I'm talking every single one of them, and combine their full version cap numbers, not what's going to wind up being, you wind up with a grand total of, with rounding, 12.5 million for all of them combined. It's just lovely. If you want to lump in the tight ends with that, and again, talking everybody, the Packers are paying their pass catchers a combined $19.2 million in terms of cap space this year. Just a tiny little nugget of all of the cap space. So that is where the Packers stand as of right now. So ultimately, you figure they got 30 million in space. 10 of that's going to go to Love-ish, 10 to 15. And then you need like 8 to 10 for Morgan and in season, right? And then all of a sudden, you're left with about, using some rough numbers, 10-ish million in true available cap space right now. So there you go. Gypsy Mike.
Saw an ex-player talking about retirement through the NFL. They get paid even after retiring. I don't recall exactly, but I think they could put money into a retirement type fund also to get more.
Yeah, that is true. It's much like a lot of like typical office jobs, especially that'll offer like a 401k. Like the players do have that opportunity to pay in and then get more eventually. The NFL also does, to my understanding, and I'm not going to lie, I haven't researched this like a ton, but to my understanding, the NFL does have a pension system. But I believe that you have to rack up so many seasons to eventually be included in that pension system. So like basically what that's saying is you can't be a UDFA out of the draft, be on a practice squad for a year and then kind of like fizzle out of football and still get this full on like NFL pension. There is a certain number of seasons that you have to be employed on a roster, etc. And then you're a part of the NFL's retirement program, in which case, yes, that does pay out. In the case of Corey Lindsley, there might, I don't know for sure, and I haven't seen anything reported on it. There might be some kind of like medical compensation tied to that contract. We don't know. And frankly, like that's more personal than anything. We might never find out.
Kamikaze saying Packers are definitely getting their money's worth out of the running or the wide receivers.
Man, you ain't kidding. Especially with how the wide receiver market has exploded, right? Like look at Justin Jefferson's new deal. Man is getting 3 times all of the Packers wide receivers alone. So, I mean, yeah, to say that they're getting their money's worth, that's a vast understatement. I would say, though, projecting forward, right? We love to talk about how, well, like, if Christian Watson's healthy, maybe he can be a true one. But really, the Packers don't have a true one. LaFleur talked about that in his press conference yesterday, that the Packers don't necessarily need a true one. The one could be different every week because they're all so talented. Well, in a couple of years when all the contracts come due, that's going to be real pricey or we're not going to keep them all. And that's pros and cons to everything, right? But yeah, right now, enjoy the fruit, no doubt.
Steve saying, sup, you two wonderful people.
Sup, Steve?
Hope you're both doing well.
Oh, thank you. You as well.
Still, what I miss.
I did a cap rundown. Basically it. That's basically it. Corey Lindsley getting cut by the Chargers, but he's retiring. Of course, he was a 7-year vet for the Packers. And then I also went over my training camp plan, in which case I'm going to be there every freaking practice and then going live. So, like, y'all got questions about training camp? Come back in July, August. Well, don't leave in the first place, but, be there for that.
Kamikaze saying, unless the employer matches the donations, the 401k is a ripoff. I lost money on my 401k.
Oh, yeah. That's a whole thing we're not gonna open here. But
That can of worms is gonna stay.
Yeah.
Dave Max Garcia need 3 accrued seasons, I believe.
I believe that is correct. I just didn't want to say it because I'm a little foggy on that, and I haven't looked it up recently, but I do believe that 3 is the number you have to have logged to get into their pension program. Yes.
Kamikaze saying the Packers have 4 number 1 wide receivers.
I mean, that's the hope, right? And they can change based on the week per the game plan. We saw it last year. Now, last year was a little bit more because of injury. It's like, who from the nice group is left? They're the number 1 this week. And then, oh yeah, by the way, here's Bo Melton to rattle off a couple 100-yard games. Of which, by the way, if you haven't seen the quote about Bo Melton that's kind of emerging, apparently yesterday he said to one of the reporters that he just loves cheese curds in Wisconsin. They make his stomach hurt, but that just doesn't stop him. I knew I loved Bo.
A true Wisconsin.
I knew I loved Bo. So, yeah, but you're right. Let's see.
Dave saying 5 years of health insurance after that due to NFLPA standards.
Okay. I mean, yeah, that makes sense. Longer tenure gets more. Oh, 5 years of health insurance after that due to NFLPA standards. Also, fuck, you've been up since 3 a.m.
Oh boy.
It's just not a topic we talk about a lot. But yeah, to make a long story short, like the NFL does have things, and that's also what you hear a lot about. I should add in, when you hear about like CBA negotiations or NFL alumni who are, obviously they can't strike anymore because they're done, but like they're influencing CBA negotiations or pushing, especially with all of the CTE news just a few years ago, how all these players who didn't make modern day money when they were playing and now are dealing with all of these health ramifications, how they've been pushing for increased health coverage, increased pension to help them with medical bills, etc. We're talking guys like the Dave Robinson era that are now in their 70s, 80s, can't walk, etc. So that's what they're talking about when you see that kind of thing in the news.
Steve saying, in this new 4-3 defense, I see Van Ness being our Bosa or TJ Watt.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear Brenton Cox Jr. is tearing it up. I'm so excited for him. He is a freak. Yeah,
Brenton Cox Jr., there was a nice report about him. I think he logged a sack in the non-contact football of OTAs the other day. Yeah, he seems to be like beginning to put it together a little bit, in which case that helps the Packers' edge depth that much more at defensive end, right? I mean, Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, Lucas Van Ness. Obviously the big 3, the lock. And Egbare, probably a lock, right? Since he's back and healthy.
Yeah.
But Brenton Cox Jr. as a 5? Yeah, you could do a lot worse for sure.
Kappa Kebble's asking, quick question. Given his career is now over, how do you feel about us moving on from Corey? When we did, should we have tried to keep him, or was that another good right move? Right.
So here's the thing. I saw this refrain when I was looking into news about going live. First of all, there was like this outpouring of appreciation for Corey Lindsley, which is great. But in addition to that, there was kind of this swell from people in the public or even some reporters saying that like the Packers ultimately, whether Josh Myers panned out or not, the fact that Lindsley is retiring at 32 is evidence that the Packers did the right thing, that they moved on at the right time. Okay, but I have a really, really big asterisk to that, and I think some people are forgetting it. I would be inclined to believe that when the Packers allowed Corey Lindsley to leave in free agency, the heart issue wasn't known. Remember, it was discovered by the Chargers, or he was shut down because of it, I should say, like weeks 2, 3 this year. He's already been with the Chargers for 2 years. So I don't think a number of years ago, the Packers knew about this heart issue, kept it secret, allowed him to go work for another team. Like, no way. I think it was a matter of, at the time, there was a lot of turmoil going on with Rodgers and his contract status and trying to get him a new contract every year. We were very, very tight up against the cap in those years. So they were looking at it and going, as good as Corey Lindsley is, he's almost 30. In this year's draft, we have a couple prospects that we like in the form of Josh Myers, Creed from Kansas City, like et cetera, right? So let's just draft one of them and hope that we can get competent play at the center position. Now, hindsight being 2020, would Corey Lindsley have continued to serve as one heck of an upgrade over Josh Myers? Yeah, of course. Would I have loved to have seen Corey Lindsley retained? Yeah, of course, but I don't think they got rid of him because of the heart issue. This one's really hard to say. Did they move on correctly? If you're looking at positional value, Lindsley left the Packers and became one of the highest paid centers in the league, and the Packers didn't have any money. So in that way, kind of hard to argue with that too. I've given this some thought, and out of all the hindsight things you can ask, it's really hard to say if the Packers did this one correctly. Now, retiring at 32, yeah, sure, they did the right thing, but I don't think the Packers had all the intel at the time, because that's just not how they work.
Patrice saying, I do believe that Bo Melton will make the roster spot.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I'm 100% with you, Patrice. And especially given LaFleur's comments the other day. Like I pointed out yesterday, like LaFleur talking about how Melton is one of the best run blocking receivers in the room, which, yeah, I mean, like he's not bad at it for sure. But to hear that praise from LaFleur was kind of surprising. It just sounded like a dude who does not have to worry. He is wide receiver 5. And I think he's, assuming nothing goes wrong, I think he's in a really good spot for sure.
We got Dave saying all these guys with their podcasts are talking about getting all their surgeries done now before their insurance runs out. It's really good insurance and you can buy back into it after the 5 years, but expensive.
Yeah, I can't speak on that. Like I haven't heard that myself, but it makes all the sense in the world. I mean, it's no different than like a typical human being who's considering a career change, yet you're in one career where you've like filled up your deductible, you're at your out-of-pocket max. Go to the doctor for every little thing in those years, right? And then as you're at your new job with a whole new benefits plan that you haven't filled up yet or whatever, then that's human nature, right? Makes all sense in the world.
Gypsy Mike saying the NFL should be forced to put a lot of money into a fund for players who were forced into taking.
Oh, Gypsy Mike, we're not going there. Come on now, you know that.
Dave saying I think Lindsley should come over as a consultant, get on staff to teach some O-line, and get insurance. He left for the money. We couldn't afford it.
Yeah, the one thing I'll point out, Gypsy Mike, is should the NFL have a huge fund of money for retired players or current? Yes, 1,000%. We're not touching the other thing though. Garcia. I wouldn't mind Lindsley coming back in that capacity at all. Like, at all. I don't doubt, though, that Lindsley, at the very least, is going to, pure speculation on my part, just everything I've heard about him, he's extremely involved in his family. And I wouldn't doubt at all that he's going to take this time to just go be a dad and go enjoy his life. Keep in mind, we don't know the specifics of the heart condition that has led to these developments for Corey Lindsley. So, who knows, really? But I think that that's what's going on for sure.
Captain Kibbles saying, if the season is extended again, how long before we have more than 53 men on the roster? It's not like money is an issue.
Well, that's the friggin' truth. I will say, though, like, I'm surprised that at the last CBA, they didn't already push for higher up than 53 men on a roster. Coaches would love to have more than 53. The only ones who don't want this is the ownership who's going to pay the paychecks. Because from the player standpoint, if you're a UDFA, if you're a late round pick, if teams can suddenly hold 60, your chances of making a roster are that much better. GMs have an easier time keeping a guy that they adore that maybe doesn't have the athletic traits. They can just keep him on the roster. Coaches have more game day flexibility, right? I am very surprised that this wasn't a larger push from the players already. With that being said, I would think logically that if it gets pushed to 18, we would see probably a higher percentage of revenue go to the players, or at least these are the things they could push for. Higher percentage of revenue ultimately going to the players and increasing the cap. but then also more players on the teams. And with higher risk of injury by playing more, it makes an awful lot of sense. So, yeah, I'm totally with Kebbles.
They're saying think Cobra, but as a football player.
Yeah, basically. All right, so it looks as though we are all caught up on comments. Corey Lindsley, obviously, the topic of the day. Oh, Patrice.
Do you think that Michael Pratt will take the number 2 spot behind Jordan Love? Because I feel that he's underrated.
So I would say ultimately no. And the reason being, they just seem so, and I'm not saying Pratt doesn't have them, but I'm just saying they seem so incredibly high on Sean Clifford's intangibles. Like being the cheerleader, his intelligence, his leadership. And frankly, he played better in the preseason last year than a lot of people expected him to. So I think that goes a long way to Clifford holding on to the number 2 quarterback job. I said the other day when I was talking about comping like the battle that those two are going to be in, Pratt may be the more technically refined quarterback at this point. But Clifford seems to have astronomical numbers in every other realm, and the Packers have shown that that's incredibly important to them. Either way, throughout the course of this year, I do see the Packers keeping both. Next offseason, the conversation gets a little murkier.
They're asking, yeah, I understand the family thing. Him and his wife enjoyed their time here. We have some good cardiologists here or medical professionals in general. Just saying.
Yeah, I mean, they might move back to the area. Sure, because they did love it here. But, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'd be all for it if the Packers were to bring him in on some kind of like consultant basis, senior analyst, whatever title they generally give those kinds of things. I just don't know if we'll see it happen, but I wouldn't be opposed. No, not at all. Have him Josh Myers replaced him. Now have him coach Josh Myers. Can't hurt.
Captain Keppel's saying, I think it shows how much the wider media and league respects Green Bay's passing, attacking the Jacobs in an afterthought or viewed as an odd signing when most teams he would be an oh my goodness signing.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just thinking about this earlier today when I was going over the cap. How much we talk about running backs, right? How impactful they can be on a team. But yet because of their short NFL careers, because we've seen late round picks make, impacts equivalent to starters a lot of times, they're just so absurdly devalued. Even Josh Jacobs coming in at a cap number this year, granted it's year one of the deal, but $5.3 million is his estimated cap number right now for a guy that we're talking about a lot and being incredibly impactful on the offense. It's just crazy to me how undervalued running backs have become, for sure.
They're saying, who's been pissing hot in camp?
There you go.
Deslin Alexander. Keep an eye on him.
Yeah, one of the Packers' edge rushers. He I think he was another one who logged a sack in OTAs the other day, and certainly last week's OTA, I believe he had one as well. He's a name I know. I think it was Paul Brettel just actually wrote an article on him a few days ago, just kind of doing a capsule on just Alexander since he is making waves. Hey, every year we go into camp and there's some UDFA, some practice squad guy that we have given no thought to who just puts it all together, figures out how to use their athleticism, or is just a perfect fit for what Green Bay wants. Maybe Alexander's that guy this year. But the only thing I'll say is to keep a Deslin Alexander means you're either keeping 6 defensive ends or edge in the 4-3 defense, or you're keeping him in favor of like a Brenton Cox Jr., because the top 4 are probably locked. So they're always a give and a take with a guy like Deslin Alexander. But he's certainly a name to keep an eye on, you're right.
Kamikaze saying, Clifford reminds me of Majkowski, and Pratt reminds me of Lindicky.
I could get with that. I mean, like, stylistically, I can see that. I mean, maybe, granted, difference between 80s football and modern football, but Pratt may not be as daring as Dickey was, but in terms of, advancing the ball down the field, stuff like that, yeah, I could certainly see a comp there. Clifford, to me, is a little reminiscent to, just to throw another name out there, of like a Matt Flynn. Yeah, he's got a little bit more mobility, but in terms of like short range accuracy and then the intangibles being off the charts, It's your modern day Matt Flynn right there.
Kevin Keppel saying, as we agreed last year, passing wins games, running wins drive. Run the damn ball.
And defense wins championships.
Yes.
There you go, Kevels.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sue saying, I'm hearing Carlson is kicking great with Claudia. Training. You got it, and Musgrave is staying on his feet.
Yeah, hey, Carlson had a fantastic day yesterday, only missing the one kick. Of course, it was from the 40s. But, great day yesterday. I should point out Greg Joseph also only missed one kick. But the big thing for Carlson was he was good from 57. He was good with that gauntlet kick from 53 where they're splattering water and yelling at him and everything. I'm in the camp of Carlson is the incumbent. He has the highest ceiling, contractually, age-wise. Everything lines up for Anders Carlson to be the kicker. Unless, of course, he completely and utterly screws it up. But keep in mind, the first 7 weeks last year, like I talked about in a video last week, dude was dynamite. It wasn't until weeks 8, 9, 10 that consistency really began a problem, and then it got kind of worse as the season evolved. If he can be the guy that he was from weeks 1 to 7, they got their kicker. And not just for this year. So, we'll see.
Kevin Keppel saying, let's get spicy. What week do you think the defense starts to click? I'm trying to contain my hype. I'm not succeeding.
So, I think there are going to be individual flashes in the first month of the season. But for it to really become a cohesive unit, I think there's actually some studies that have been done on this. But just thinking it through, I think we see we see flashes, we see brilliance to get us excited, but we also see problems in the first month of the season. And then week 6, 7, then we start looking at it oh, all right, some of the daringness has maybe gone a little bit, but all of a sudden they look like a cohesive unit where the guys are actually moving together. And then weeks 10 through 12, then it's oh, this is what Hafley designed. That's exciting. I think it really is going to take about that long, and that's the really important thing to keep in mind. Probably why they might not finish end-of-year rankings quite as high as we hope that they do, or as high as they finish the season, because it is going to take some time, no doubt.
Dave saying, yeah, the problem is Cox, Alexander, and Biggs all showing up in camp.
Yeah, and what a wonderful problem that would be, right? The Packers would love to have the hardest decisions ever and have all 90 dudes on the roster have the best camp of their lives. What a luxurious issue, no doubt.
Gavin Keppel saying, your boy, our punter, apparently has that nuke leg and incredible halftime.
Yeah, hang time, I'm assuming. But Dan Whelan, the Irishman. Yes, no doubt about it.
The Irishman.
He, I was actually kind of surprised. He was only, I'm going to talk about this on Friday, he was only about a half yard off of the Packers team record for net punt distance set by Corey Bojorquez in the early 2020s. I think it was 2021 when Bojorquez was there. So he was only about a half yard off of that. Very, very strong first season for Whelan, no doubt. And they could do worse. We've seen worse.
Dave saying, please get rid of Joseph. Vikings' poison of kickers will leach into the water.
Yeah, I even said it the other day, when I had to include, I had a little graphic of the kickers, and I had to include Joseph on a Vikings jersey. Gross. Felt wrong.
Right? We only like Vikings in our thumbnails when they lose. Sad players.
And I could put Jefferson on the ground with his helmet facing down, stuff like that, yeah.
Juicy Mike saying, in my opinion, Kevin Keppel, the new defensive coach has the whole defense coming out, kicking ass and taking names. Top 5.
I know, you come back to it every week, you're saying top 5. I'm still sitting around give me top 10, and I will be thrilled. Last year, I think per most metrics, depending on which one you believe, which one you like best, they finished between 20th and 23rd last year. Give me 10. And the team, it will be an unbelievably noticeable change. I can't wait.
Kevin Keppel saying, I'd rather suck on defense first 8 weeks than peak early. Basically, I prefer the 2021 timeline than the 2019.
1000% yes. When do you want to play your best football? December and January. Lots of teams suck in September and go on deep playoff runs. Why? Because especially as the preseason is getting shorter and shorter, camp has less contact guys. These guys just aren't playing together as much as they used to. So a lot of September, just like what they saw with the offense last year, a lot of September is dudes feeling each other out, learning to play together if there's a lot of turnover on a team, right? Well, defense is no different.
Big L, hi John. In your opinion, what was Goody's best move and worst move? For me, 2019 offseason was signing Smith Brothers and Adrian Amos. The worst move, signing Jimmy Graham.
Jimmy Graham's certainly a contender in that regard. What's up, Big Al? I would say, yeah, I mean, like the 2019 free agent class was such a marvel, right? And it was so incredibly revolutionary for us. We weren't used to spending any money in free agency. And then all of a sudden he went on like this mass shopping spree. That certainly ranks up there. The other thing that I will always come back to with Goot is when people talk about overvaluing him in the draft. Do you remember his first draft, that masterclass that he put on, trading back like 3 spots, still nabbing Jair Alexander and getting a first round pick in the next draft? Like that's some Kevin Costner nonsense that Goody was pulling. So, I mean, like I'll always give him a world of credit for that move as well. And then I think he also does deserve a lot of credit. 2 more things. One, just the Jordan Love pick at all. The cojones it takes for a GM to take, just like Ted Thompson choosing Rodgers. Like, it's a thing Green Bay GMs have to do in time, right? But then the other thing, too, is look at some of the UDFA, street free agent, in-season signings that he's made, like a Rasul Douglas, who eventually turned into a top 100 pick. You know, some of those picks have become, or some of those signings have become massive, like, boons for the organization at basically no investment cost. That's a sign of a great GM and pro personnel department as well. The worst move, yeah, Jimmy Graham, 100% up there. And then also, you know, continuing to give Rodgers his new extensions was not necessarily a mistake, but the way that they were done, like especially that last one, the way it was written, gave Rodgers so much control. It did make trading Rodgers 100% more difficult, which is partly what Rodgers wanted. So, like, there was no right answer at the time for how Goot could have handled that. But looking back, it could have gone better for Green Bay, sure.
Kevin Keppel saying, someone said Carl Brooks is going to be the guy to watch. I'll admit I'm not well versed on why he's so hyped. Is it projection hype or production? Like he got traits, or was he a beast in college?
Dude was a monster in college. Like, let's just go there. So his athletic traits, not the best in the world. He's one of those players that you just, like, you look at and you just go like, well, he's not the fastest dude on the field. He's not the strongest dude on the field. He's not like ripped with all these muscles. But the dude just gets the job done every single time. That's the way that he was collegiately. In fact, I think per PFF, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe his final year in college, he was the top ranked collegiate or graded edge in all of college football that year. That's not a mistake. He just wasn't drafted higher because he went to a small school and because he didn't have this 9.99 RAS, stuff like that. So a lot of it is just the dude, you know, he continued to produce even as a rookie last year when he was given chances. But I should say that it's some of the ways that he succeeded last year. His burst, his ability to push around inferior guards. There were some real highlights for Carl Brooks last year. And it's easy to see him doing that more and more, moving forward with more opportunities.
Steve saying, John, a question and be honest. What kind of contract do you believe Love will get?
So I think the Packers are going to have to break a couple of their tendencies here. One, the Packers generally don't like giving guaranteed money in like the extended years of a contract. Generally, they put guaranteed money in like years 1, 2. They really don't like to do 3, 4, 5, etc. Of course. I think they may have to tendency break that a little and guaranteed portions of Love's contract later on in the deal. So let's just cover that first. Other than that, I think we're looking at probably either a 4 or 5 year contract with the annual valuation. I don't think he's necessarily going to top Burrow at 55, but I do think it's going to be somewhere between 50 and 55. And then just without getting too technical, let's go with a super like somewhere in between 30 and 50% of it in total guaranteed. That's what I'm going with.
Kamikaze saying the Packers will need to stop the run before I think they're top 5.
1000% yes. And I don't necessarily know the way that happens yet. I think the read and react of the defensive line will help in that regard a lot. But at the same time, given their personnel moves, given like what I do know the Packers are going to do as a scheme, I don't see it as like, oh, they for sure emphasized it and it's just like a guaranteed fix. I don't know about that. But I think they've done some little things. We'll see if it pans out. All right, couple more and then we got a hop.
They're saying, you've been watching Hicks and Stanley making some good grabs. Someone will make the PS.
I wouldn't be shocked at all if both make the practice squad. Yeah. I think it's incredibly possible that this is the year that the Packers move on from Samori Toure. And then we see someone like Hicks and Stanley both on the practice squad. I think that that's tremendously possible. Stanley had the huge catch the other few weeks ago at like the rookie camp. That's what ultimately got him a UDFA contract. But Hicks has been, people have talked about how incredible of a smooth route runner he is. Shades of like a little different body type, but some shades of Dontavian Wicks in his game. And Green Bay is going to love that. So two guys that I'm really eager to see for sure at camp.
Kevin Keppel saying, do you play Watson and Love for more 2 preseason quarters? Personally, I only played him the second half of the final game. Let him war up behind the practice squad guys.
I think with Watson, we'll see. It'll depend very much. Too early to say. It'll depend very much on his health at that time. Love, I think we probably see something like last year, but not as much. Maybe like, let's go half in game 1, half in game 2, quarter game 3. Because the Packers, I think, will play him less in game 3. Because keep in mind, too, the Packers, per their way of doing things, they love having that last preseason game to really evaluate the bottom of the roster spots so that Goot can make his final declarations as to who's going to make over who. And we see other teams kind of use it as like a warm-up for the season. This year, since they're already a more cohesive unit, I think we'll see them return back to playing a lot of the lower turn guys more so Goot can make his calls.
Adding on to his last comment, him being Love, keep Watson on the bench for a while. In my opinion, same with Tom, and let them be 100%.
Yeah, Tom even did a little bit of work, like just kind of like team drill stuff the other day at OTAs. So I think Tom truly might meet the projection of being good to go for camp, in which case they'll just play him like normal. Watson, it's going to be... I know everything's roses right now. We'll see when we get to camp if it stays roses or not. Obviously, we hope so, but it's just so much to be determined there.
Dan saying, John, glad you got the kinks out. Yesterday's show had some great content.
Thanks, Dan.
Enjoy the story about the gauntlet.
Yeah.
Hit the like button.
I love the gauntlet. I got to tell you, too, first of all, thank you for that. Hit like. But second, when I'm at camp, the gauntlet is one of the coolest things. Like, out of all the things that they do, the entire team comes together and harasses their kicker. It's one of the coolest moments in all of camp to just sit back and go, that's a team. They're all friends. And then when a kicker hits it, to see the entire team mob the kicker, lift him up, like continue spraying him with water, screaming. It's just one of the things that just makes you fall in love with a team. And I will always kind of glow when I talk about the gauntlet because it just breaks the monotony. There's not many things like it on the football field. And I love watching it.
Kevin Kibble saying, I forgot that Myers is close with Jordan. Could be another reason why they don't want to move him.
Just like Lindsley was close with Rodgers back in the day. Just like Frank Winters and Favre were good friends. I mean, that is a part. Quarterback and center trust has to be there for sure. All right, now I mean it this time. A couple more.
Dave saying he was that weird tweener in college. They couldn't figure out where to put him. He was a beast that we stole in the 6th.
1,000%. Yes. Contract 48 to 52 based on how he knows. Yeah, I think he's going to cross 50. I really do. I just don't see him being under 50 with the market right now.
Sue saying they say that Dylan is looking leaner and more muscular. I mean, have you seen him? And has more bounce in his step.
Yeah, dude got new teeth.
Yeah.
Dude came in leaner. And dude came in like now he's Bizilla and Byfather with those
like the quad is not the most muscular thing.
Dude's ripped now. And he just actually, Paul Brettel did another article just dropped this afternoon. I haven't gotten a chance to read it yet, but I know it was kind of a capsule on how Dylan changed this offseason, how he rededicated, how he's trying to get more burst. Love that. Love and adore that. No doubt about it.
Kevin Kibble saying, sorry for the typos today. Phone is on his last leg. Oh, we understand more than you know.
Chad.
I know you guys are about done. I showed up late. That's okay.
What's
Just
up, Chad?
Say hey and hope you guys are doing well.
Thank you. You as well, Chad. Big Al.
A lot of good Eric Stoltz. He's primed to have a bounce back season. We would love a good comeback.
100%. And I mean, that quote from LaFleur about being the best he's ever seen him on the field and off, that's high praise. Like, that's, I know LaFleur hands out a lot of like typical praise type things. He loves the phrase like, you dog, and like stuff like that. But for him to say best he's seen someone, that is high LaFleur praise for sure.
Gypsy Mike, I'd rather give Love a 2-year 40 to 45 million contract than in 2 years, if he improves, give him a 4-year 55 to 60 million contract.
I'm sure the Packers would love that. However,
I don't think Love would like that.
No, this is going to be a longer deal and it's going to be lucrative. Yeah, it is.
Kevin Keppel saying if a player is fined if they accidentally bump into a red jersey, like honest mistake thing.
Nah, from what I've seen, no. Like, to get fined by the team in training camp, it's got to have like some kind of malicious intent. Like, you're full on starting a fight or something like that. And even then, coaches are really understanding about, look, camp is like 6 weeks long.
It's hot as hell.
Yeah, you only get so many days to hit each other, right? And even then, you're hitting the same dudes every single day. Like, they call it the dog days of camp for a reason.
Well, that was like last year. Wasn't there some tussles that were going on? And even LaFleur went on and was just like,
oh, yeah. I remember.
This is fine.
Yeah, I do remember there was one day where LaFleur, there was some pushing and shoving in a huddle, and then LaFleur came screaming in and just was dropping, "What the F are you doing out here?" And just screaming. And the whole stands was like, oh, there's angry Matt. Yeah. So, I mean, like, to answer your question, Kebbles, an accidental hit on a QB, nah, that's not going to render a fine. There's got to be some kind of malicious intent or a repeated problem, or it's got to be pretty bad. Yeah.
We already did that one.
Oh, my bad. Kamikaze, last one.
AJ Dillon probably didn't like what I said this season.
Hey, wait,
he got some heat.
Yeah, AJ Dillon's got a pretty big online presence.
Heat.
I mean, like, out of all of the Packers, the one who probably does follow like some online news.
Oh yeah.
Wouldn't shock me if it's AJ. Yeah. So, I mean, look, by all accounts, dude seems like a great human. Like, I know from experience, because of the other side of our lives, like selling memorabilia and stuff, AJ Dillon even does local card shows and like will be a vendor to sell football cards and just hang out and just be with people. Yes. By all accounts, the dude is a great human. And maybe because he got married, because he had a baby, because there was all this stuff, like maybe football wasn't like the top thing for him for a year, in which case that sucks and it's irresponsible and whatever. Like, you can throw all the adjectives at him, but it sounds as though he recognized the problem. Sounds as though he's in great shape. Sounds as though he just wants to be a Packer, no matter what that means. That's a dude I can root for sure. So, all right, everybody, it is time for us to go. We got some plans for tonight. It's time for us to get out of here. So join us on Friday. I'll be dropping another video on Friday. I think I'm actually going to talk about some personal records, some team records that may even fall this year, of course, unless there's other news and stuff like a love contract. Always subject to change. It's just what I'm projecting. So let's get on out of here, but that will drop on Friday. And then, of course, just regularly scheduled program from here on out. So thanks, everybody. Go have a great day. And as always, go Pack, go.